Chirag and welcome to this video. In the previous video, I covered the overview of the Amazon CodeWhisperer and I would recommend you to go through it once to gain a good understanding of CodeWhisperer in terms of what it is and how it suggests code, languages and IDEs it supports, its pricing, how it collects data and so on. I have posted the link to it in the video description. Now as a part of this video, I will cover how to set up and use Amazon CodeWhisperer individual tier with Visual Studio Code along with examples. So please go ahead and open Visual Studio Code and please make sure that you have the latest version of VS Code installed. Before we move on, I would like to request all of you to please take a moment to hit the like button and share this video with your friends. And if you haven't already, consider subscribing to our channel for great content like this. As a first step, we have to install an extension within VS Code, that is AWS Toolkit. And to install an extension, click on this icon from the left panel, search for AWS Toolkit. Click on this first option, that is AWS Toolkit, and click on install. It will take a couple of seconds to get installed, and as you can see, it is installed successfully. Now, as soon as you install the AWS Toolkit extension, you will see the CodeWhisperer option at the bottom and the AWS icon on the left. Now let's click on this AWS icon, and here under Developer Tools you will be able to see the CodeWhisperer option and you can expand it. And here under CodeWhisperer we have an option to start it. In order to use Amazon CodeWhisperer with the AWS Toolkit for Visual Studio Code, you have to establish an authenticated connection to AWS, but that does not mean you should have the existing AWS account. So to use Amazon CodeWhisperer, all you need is an email address and access to it. So now let's click on Start. Now as soon as you click on Start, it will ask to add a connection to AWS. Now to add a connection to AWS, we have got three options. The first one is use personal email to sign up and sign in with the AWS Builder ID. And that is something that we are going to use as a part of this video. The second option that we have is connect using AWS IAM Identity Center. Now second option is used for the CodeWhisperer professional tier. So for example, if you are a part of an organization and if your administrator has enabled CodeWhisperer for you, then you have to sign in or you have to establish that authenticated connection using the second option, that is AWS IAM Identity Center. And then we have a third option, that is by using IAM credentials, but that is not supported by CodeWhisperer. So as I mentioned that we are going to use the first option. I'm simply reiterating it that as an individual developer, you have to use AWS Builder ID to authenticate in order to use CodeWhisperer. And the authentication mechanism will be different when you are working with the CodeWhisperer professional tier. Now before we move on and click on that first option, I quickly wanted to touch upon what exactly is AWS Builder ID. So AWS Builder ID is a personal profile for builders or the individuals like us. AWS Builder ID basically represents you as a person outside the scope of your organization. And you can simply sign up for AWS Builder ID with your name and email. Okay, so that's a quick about AWS Builder ID. So let's click on this first option, that is use personal email to sign up and sign in with AWS Builder ID. Now as soon as you click on that option, the pop-up will appear and it will say copy this code and proceed. So let's click on copy code and proceed. Now once you copy the code, it will ask you that do you want to open this website, that is device.sso. Some URL. You can copy that URL and open it in different browser, or you can simply click on open. Now as soon as you click on open, it will open that URL in the default browser. So in my case, it's Safari, and here you need to paste that code and click on next. So here you simply need to follow the instruction that comes up one after another on this screen. If you are creating your AWS Builder ID for the first time, then you need to enter your personal email address, or if you have already created your AWS Builder ID, then you can click on the second option that already have AWS Builder ID and sign in. So let's assume that we do not have the AWS Builder ID. So here I will enter my email address and click on next. Enter your name. I will simply say Chirag and click on next. In this tab, AWS will send out the verification code to the mentioned email address. So make sure that you have access to that email. So let me quickly open this email and enter that code. Now once you enter the code, click on verify. Here you need to set your password, enter the captcha, and then click on create AWS Builder ID. Now as soon as you create your Builder ID, it will ask for the permissions to allow AWS Toolkit for VS Code to access your data. You need to click on allow. And after that, you are all done with your AWS Toolkit setup, and now you are good to use AWS or Amazon CodeWhisperer. So now let's close this window and go back to the Visual Studio Code. There is another pop-up. It says some tools you have been using don't work with AWS Builder ID. Keep using AWS Builder ID in the background while using profile default. I will simply select no, and I will say switch everything to authenticate with AWS Builder ID. Everything is set up successfully and the CodeWhisperer is in running mode. And here at the very bottom, we have AWS Builder ID as an authentication method, and there is a tick mark in front of both the items. That means everything is working fine and we are good to test it out. Under CodeWhisperer, we have three options, that is pause auto suggestion. So you can pause it and you can also resume it whenever you want. Then we have an option for run security scan. So that is again one of the feature of the CodeWhisperer. And finally, we have the log file for open source code references. Now, before we go ahead and test all the features of the CodeWhisperer, I just want to again highlight that all individual developers must sign up or sign in through the procedure that we just followed, that is using the AWS Builder ID. And access to CodeWhisperer for individual developers is not tied to your AWS account access. So for example, if any of your individual AWS account that is already connected to the VS Code, that does not mean it will provide access to the CodeWhisperer in VS Code. Okay, so keep that thing in mind. Okay, so now let's go back to the Explorer, and here I have a couple of files which we will go through one by one. Let's start with the general.py. In this file, I have import pandas as PD as an import statement. As the next step, I'm going to add a comment about a specific functionality that I want to implement, and I will let Amazon CodeWhisperer to suggest the code for the same. Okay, so let me type the comment, that is hash implement function process underscore CSV to extract data from CSV file and return average income of the employees. Okay, I will press enter. Now here, if you remember, then within this AWS, we have disabled the auto suggestions. So that is where we will not receive any sort of auto suggestions. Now, in order to get the suggestions when this auto suggestion is disabled, you have to press Option C if you are using macOS. If you are on Windows, then you need to press Alt C to get the recommendations. So here, as soon as I pressed Option C, I'm able to see the suggestions. Now to accept these suggestions, you need to press Tab. If you want another recommendation, then press right arrow key. If you want to see the previous recommendation, then you can press left arrow key. And if you want to reject a particular suggestion or a recommendation, then simply press escape key or keep typing. Now, as soon as I accepted the suggestion, this is being typed in. Now I will press enter. Again, I will press Option C for the next recommendation. So as you can see, now there is a code for reading the CSV file and then returning the average income. Now, if I press the right arrow key, then it will provide me the next suggestion. Again, right key. So there are only two suggestions, and I will press tab. And here we have the function to get the average income from the particular data frame. Okay. Now let me enable auto suggestions. So click on AWS. From the left panel, expand CodeWhisperer and click on resume auto suggestions. Now let's say we want to run this. So I will simply say if space, here I have the auto suggestion. So I will accept this suggestion. I will press tab, enter. You have to wait for a few seconds to get the suggestions when the auto suggestions are enabled. In case if you do not get that auto suggestion, then you can manually press Option C on Mac or Alt+C on Windows. Okay, so here we have the print statement that is calling process_csv with the file that is data.csv. I will press tab and I will press enter. In the left panel, I have customer.csv, so I will replace data.csv with customer.csv. Now let me quickly run this file. I will say Python 3 general.py, enter. And as you can see, we have the average income that is 60.56. Now this suggestion was based on the comments, as well as when I typed in if, it auto suggested the _ name equal to main and then this print statement. Apart from this, let's say I want to read an image using OpenCV2 without adding any comment. So I will simply say def read _ image, and then I will wait for the suggestion. Or if you do not get the suggestion, you can simply press Option C. It suggested into parenthesis file name and then written cv2.imread file name, and it automatically added the import statement on line number 2, that is cv2. Below on line number 12, it is auto suggesting a function to display an image as well. So I can press tab, press enter. We have cv2.imshow and wait key and destroy all windows. Now let's say I want a function for convert the image to grayscale. I will say enter, and here we have a function that is convert to grayscale. I will say enter again, and here we have the return statement that says cv2.cvt color image and the conversion. So this is how you can generally write comments and get the code suggestions. And providing the meaningful name to the function will help CodeWhisperer to generate better results or better code suggestion. So this was with respect to the general code suggestions that we get. Now let's go to the AWS_demo.py. So here we will write a function using the CodeWhisperer with respect to the AWS services. Right, so here I have imported Boto3. I will type a comment, read the file and upload it to S3 bucket. At the bottom, I am getting the suggestion that is upload _ file with the file name and the bucket. I will say enter, tab, enter, and here we have the upload file function. Similarly, it is auto suggesting a function to download the file from S3. Let me press tab, tab again. You can play around with your left arrow and the right arrow keys to get different suggestions, and then press tab to accept that suggestion. And then again, it is suggesting for deleting the file from S3, but we don't want to do that as of now. Now here in the same file, I would also like to cover the code reference feature of Amazon CodeWhisperer. So basically it's a feature that detects if the suggested code by CodeWhisperer is similar to the CodeWhisperer open source training data or not. So basically if it matches the training data, then the reference tracker will flag such suggestions with the open source project repository URL and its license. Okay, so let's type the command that implement a function to create a DynamoDB table, and let's press enter. We have the suggestion that says create _ table with table _ name and region. I will say enter. So here we have the suggestion. So let me look for other suggestions as well. So I will press the right arrow key to receive next code recommendation. It says reference code under MIT. View full details in CodeWhisperer reference log. So basically this code snippet is coming from one of the repository which is under MIT license. Now if I again click on the right arrow key for another suggestion, then this code snippet is referenced under Apache 2.0 license. I will accept the second suggestion which says reference code under MIT. Save this, and now if I look at the CodeWhisperer reference log, then here I will be able to see that accepted recommendation with code so and so provided with reference under MIT from repository, that is todo-list-serverless. So this is the repository URL, and the code snippet is added to this file, that is AWS_demo.py, which is from line 20 to line 38. Okay, so this is how the open source code reference work. So in general, CodeWhisperer reference tracker is flagging this particular suggestion as under MIT license. And CodeWhisperer will log the license information under CodeWhisperer reference logs, which can also be reviewed later on to make an informed decision about usage of this code with proper attribution or whether to not use it. So here under CodeWhisperer reference log, we just saw that the license information and the repository information from which this code was taken. Now as a next step, let's go through the code scanning feature of Amazon CodeWhisperer. So here I have this file, and in this file I have imported two packages. One is logging and another is psychopg2. And on line number 9, I have defined a function that is connect to the database. And here I have passed all the information in the plain text, and it's not a good idea to pass this information like this. Let's see if Amazon CodeWhisperer's code security scan feature is able to highlight this or not. So for that, we need to click on this AWS icon, and then you need to click on Run Security Scan. So let's click on that. And now it is scanning active file and its dependencies. So let's wait for the results. So it says security scan completed for 4 files and 2 issues were found. First issue is hard-coded credentials, and similarly the second issue is also same, that is hard-coded credentials. So if we hover over here, then we should be able to view the problem in detail, that why it basically highlighted this or why it detected this as an issue. Now to fix this, we will import OS. Here we will say password equal to os.getEnv, and we will pull some variable, maybe let's say password. Okay, and then instead of plain password, we will define password over here, and in case if we do not get anything from password as an environment variable, we will pass none. Okay, so it says rescan to validate the fix. So now we have fixed it. Let's rescan it. The security scan is completed for 4 files. 0 issues were found. So this is how you can fix the security issues as well, and it also provides the quick fixes for the identified security issues. So guys, here we explored couple of features of Amazon CodeWhisperer. So the first one that we explored was under general.py. So this was regarding the general code suggestions that Amazon CodeWhisperer provides when you type the comment or when you type in the intuitive function name. And then we had a look at the AWS_demo.py, where Amazon CodeWhisperer helped us to create the function to interact with the AWS services. And then we had a look at the open source code reference tracker and how it can be helpful in terms of making the informed decision with respect to the licenses. And finally, we explored the code security issues scanning feature under CodeWhisperer. So these are few of the features that is supported by Amazon CodeWhisperer that we just explored. Now I quickly want to touch upon the data collection settings that you can enable or disable based on your preferences. So for that, click on this setting icon in the left panel, click on settings. Under user, click on the extensions and click on AWS Toolkit. Here under AWS Toolkit, you will be able to see AWS CodeWhisperer import recommendations, so you can check or uncheck. Similarly, it has include suggestions with code references. So that means the license part that we saw, right? So if you want to keep it enabled, then you can check this. And then here we have something with Java compilation output. Here comes the data sharing part, which says share CodeWhisperer content with AWS. So you can uncheck this to stop sharing the content with the AWS. And then there is one more which collects the telemetry data. If you scroll down to locate AWS telemetry, and based on your preferences, you can check or uncheck it. Okay, so this is how you can configure your data collection settings. So guys, I hope you found this video helpful, and let me know your thoughts about Amazon CodeWhisperer in the comment section. So guys, that was all for this video. Until that time, if you want me to do tutorial on any use case or service, then please leave them below and I will try my best to come up with a tutorial as soon as possible. And if you have any queries or comments, then again please leave them below and don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel, and see you next time.